It felt like the floor was moving, and it was odd.
I said, you're making this up. You got to snap out of it.
She didn't know it was wrong, and it was just a really big mystery.
Everyone who approached me came in gowned and masked, and I kept asking, do you know what's wrong with me?
Next, two medical mysteries that defied the experts. At first, Roseanne Jensen thinks she's just suffering from a simple case of jet lag, until her entire world begins to literally spin out of control.
I totally thought she was crazy.
They had no idea what was wrong with me. It was pure living hell.
Then, in the summer of 1993, Knoxville, Tennessee native Roseanne Jensen was leading the life she'd always dreamed of. In fact, between her doting husband and two adorable kids, she'd never been happier or felt better.
I was a health nut. I like to eat healthy, and I like to work out, and I like to just keep my body in really good shape.
Roseanne loved being outdoors all the time, doing stuff. She had a nice body on her.
But little does Roseanne realize that her seemingly perfect life is about to spiral out of control.
My husband was going to be going on a trip to California for about a month, and we decided to go with him.
So we all just packed up and got on an airplane and flew to California.
The plane ride was pretty much normal with two little kids. Got off the plane in San Francisco.
As soon as they land, the family starts driving down the coast on their way to Los Angeles. But when they stop at a restaurant for lunch, Roseanne begins to feel something she's never felt before.
When we stopped at a restaurant and we were standing on tile floor, a very solid restaurant, it felt like the floor was moving. And I, inside, felt like, was an earthquake going on or something, because I'm in California.
Wondering if jet lag is playing tricks on her, she takes a few deep breaths and just tries to gather herself. But no matter what she does, the bizarre feeling doesn't let up.
She turned around and looked at me and she said, "Do you feel a little weird?" I said, "No, I don't."
It was so much stronger in the restaurant at that point that it was a bit alarming.
Eventually, the weird rocking sensation subsides. But over the next 2 weeks, Roseanne struggles to enjoy the family's vacation as she begins to experience the relentless attacks on a daily basis.
Where I had felt it most was if I was sitting solid or sitting on the bed in the hotel room. Just sitting there, I would feel like I'm rocking, like I'm on a boat, like I was literally actually in the water in waves. And it was odd.
At the time, I didn't think there was anything wrong with Roseanne, so I just told her just, take it easy and take a nap, and I will take care of the kids.
Roseanne is hoping that once they return home, the freakish feeling will vanish as quickly as it appeared. But as soon as she walks into the house, she experiences yet another attack.
I remember looking at the curtain, and the curtain looked like it was moving a little bit. And that was always questionable, like, am I moving or is the curtain moving?
The strange sensation scares her, and as the weeks go by, the intermittent spells begin to take their toll.
I did feel more worn out and stressed. I guess you'd say fatigued. There were days that I had to just sit basically on the floor and just try to get my balance back.
Making things even worse, Chris is having a hard time believing anything is wrong with her at all.
The way I'm brought up is, unless you see blood coming out of you or a bone sticking out of you, you're okay. So no, I didn't take it seriously at all.
But Roseanne is convinced that it's not all in her head.
And so that's when I decided that I wanted to just ask my family doctor if he had any idea what was going on. I was hoping it was an ear infection or a sinus infection, because that's pretty easy to clear up.
Roseanne gives the doctor a detailed account of her mysterious symptom, and then he performs a comprehensive physical exam.
And he told me, "You appear completely healthy in every other way. Everything tests out fine. We could do further checkup. I don't really think you need it."
Roseanne can't believe what she's hearing.
So I insisted. I said, this has happened too many times. I want to find out what's going on.
The doctor tells Roseanne the only other thing he can do is perform an MRI, since balance disorders can sometimes be linked to abnormalities in the brain.
I had never had an MRI before. It just was a little intimidating to go inside this big tube. When we went there, actually, I had them let my husband come in the room with me and hold my foot because it was scary.
Everything would be fine, but everything would be wrong. And, of course, we didn't know what to expect at the time.
All Roseanne and Chris can do now is wait for the results. It's the most agonizing week of their lives.
I was scared. I was very scared. I was afraid that possibly there was a brain tumor and that what would my kids do without me?
But nothing could have prepared Roseanne for what the images would reveal.
And they said, you're totally clear. There's nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with you. So I was happy that there was nothing wrong, but then it still had the question, what's going on? What is this? Because the doctors had no clue, and they had never heard of this rocking kind of dizziness.
Roseanne leaves the doctor's office confused and frustrated.
Everyone used to tell me that I looked normal, I acted normal, I walked normal, so it didn't look like anything was wrong with me.
I totally thought she was crazy. After the doctor said he couldn't find anything wrong, then I said, you're making this up. You got to snap out of it.
Roseanne Jensen has been consumed by a wave of bizarre spells that leave her feeling like her whole world is rocking, literally, and no doctor seems to have any idea what's causing it.
The symptoms came and went, and I'd go to take a shower in the morning. I'd bend over to wash my hair, close my eyes, and I felt like I could fall over.
Roseanne manages to live with the episodes for a few years, but eventually they begin to wear her down, especially when she realizes that they're starting to worry her children and alienate her husband.
She'd always get these attacks or dizziness, and she would just watch us play, and it was sad because she couldn't participate in anything.
When I was about 5 years old, I remember going up to my mom's room and the door was locked. And I wanted to talk to her, so I kept banging on the door and asking, Mom, are you there? And I didn't know it was wrong, and she didn't know it was wrong. And it was just a really big mystery.
She drove me nuts a lot of times because I couldn't understand it, It was bad. It was really bad.
Determined once again to prove that it's not all in her head, Roseanne makes another appointment with a new doctor. From the get-go, she knows it will be a struggle.
I try to make visuals for them. I try to take my hands and say it feels like I'm being pushed and pulled. It feels like I'm on a rocky dock, ready to fall off of it. It just feels like the earth is moving underneath me.
Baffled by Roseanne's description of her symptoms, the doctor decides to test her for one of the most common balance disorders, vertigo.
They put water in your ears, hot and cold water, which provokes true vertigo, which was very frightening.
By placing fluids of varying temperatures in the ear canal, the doctor stimulates Roseanne's inner ear in an attempt to throw off her sense of balance. Then he asks her to follow a series of small moving lights on the wall, hoping to detect involuntary eye movements that only occur when a person is suffering from vertigo. An hour later, the findings are in.
The result of the test was that I was normal. And since I checked out healthy in every other way, they just sort of said, well, live with it. You're doing okay. But I wasn't doing okay inside.
Still bent on finding an explanation, Roseanne schedules exams with 3 more experts. But none of them find anything out of the ordinary.
I questioned the doctors. I don't think the doctors were happy that I was questioning them. It was just so frustrating.
Worst of all, the condition is continuing to pull her further and further away from her family.
I was very confused about what was going on. She didn't look unhealthy, but I could tell that something was very wrong.
She's my mom, and I love her. So I tried to help her, but at times I didn't think I could, so I sort of just stayed off to the sides.
I felt helpless, and that's what really started hurting me, is that I couldn't do anything for her.
Chris soon finds himself doing all he can to escape the intolerable situation at home.
I think it drew us apart because I couldn't understand it, and we used to get arguments about it. It's one of the major reasons we got separated.
I believe that the illness was part of a factor in Chris and my divorce, the frustration that he had to go through and that I went through, and just trying to get through this and find an answer.
Feeling more isolated than ever, Roseanne stops talking about her symptoms entirely, preferring to suffer alone in silence.
I just started keeping quiet about it because it was almost embarrassing, like I had a defect or something, and tired of people thinking I was making it up. It was pure living hell.
Little does Roseanne know that her worst nightmare is far from over. In fact, it's just beginning.
One day when I was working in a salon, I was working on somebody's hair, and all of a sudden it felt like the floor dropped out from underneath me. I went into like a cold sweat, and I basically had a panic attack. I had to hold on to the counter. I didn't know what to do. I just sat down for a while and I just tried to breathe, and it scared me to death. Like, what is happening to me? It was stronger than anything I had ever felt to that point. I told my boss that I think I need to leave for the day.
Roseanne staggers out to the parking lot and into her car. Surprisingly, it's the one place she feels comfortable.
One of the weird things was when I was in a car, I would feel normal in the car. As soon as I got out of the car, I felt like I was back on the boat, back rocking, back not on the earth anymore. And I felt like that was so strange. I got in my car carefully, drove myself home, and basically sat on the couch and cried and got scared.
It's a turning point for Roseanne. Fed up with the experts who don't take her seriously, she soon launches her own one-woman investigation.
After I had had that attack at this salon, I gathered books together from the library. I bought books. I started searching on the internet daily. I was obsessed with finding an answer for this problem.
And then one night, Roseanne stumbles onto something.
I just was searching, and I was looking, and I found all the symptoms that I was having almost exactly to a T, everything that I was feeling. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I found an answer.
She prints out everything she's found and hightails it to her current doctor, hoping that he'll be able to confirm her hunch.
And he said, I need to send you to the guy with the big guns, the guy in Nashville. And that's when I was referred to Dr. Schwaber.
I received a letter from Roseanne. Most of the symptoms that she described were a rocking motion, a wave-like motion going up and down, much like you would feel had you been on a boat or a ride, such as at a fair or an amusement park. After reading the letter, I was fairly certain that I knew what the problem was.
Roseanne Jensen has been living with a bizarre and debilitating rocking sensation for more than 6 years. Now she's on her way to Nashville to see balance disorder specialist Dr. Mitchell Schwaber, and she's praying that he'll have the answer she's been so desperately looking for.
She was very, very frustrated because no one seemed to be able to establish what it was that was wrong with her, and she knew that she felt a balance disturbance, but no one could identify it.
After giving her a thorough head-to-toe neurological exam, Dr. Schwaber thinks he knows what might be plaguing Roseanne. But in order to confirm his suspicion, he must run a highly specialized test.
I recommended that she have a computerized dynamic posturography. It's a test where a patient is asked to stand on a platform.
Yeah, I remember the platform test that he did with me. It was really strange.
As Roseanne steps onto the machine, the platform starts to shift in varying degrees beneath her feet.
I was in this harness, and these pictures in front of me, it looked like almost like a landscape was moving in front of me, and I had to focus on different points that they told me to do.
We asked the patient to do it with their eyes open, their eyes closed, and when the visual field is moving. By doing all of this, we can determine how the vestibular system or the inner ear is working and whether it's sensitive to gravity or not.
It was hard to keep your balance on this machine. Pretty hard.
She was in the shoulder harness, and when the floor actually shifted, she actually had a fall, or would have fallen if the harness hadn't have caught her. So it indicated that she was not able to maintain her balance, even with slight changes in gravity level.
The moment Roseanne loses her balance, Dr. Schwaber realizes that he's found the crucial piece of the puzzle.
At that time, based on the symptoms that she had, the prior studies being normal, and the platform study showing the gravity center being abnormal, we really felt very strongly that she had the disembarking syndrome.
Disembarkment syndrome, or mal de débarquement, is thought to be triggered by an abnormality in the gravity receptors of the inner ear. The gravity receptors help maintain a person's balance by sending a signal to the brain when the body experiences movement, like during a boat ride. When the movement stops, the receptors help the body adjust to being back on solid ground. But in patients like Roseanne, the gravity receptors, for unknown reasons, fail to readjust to stable ground, leaving her with a sensation of being in constant motion.
In Ms. Jensen's case, the problem continued on and on and on.
Dr. Schwaber believes Roseanne's condition may have been triggered by her seemingly routine plane trip to San Francisco so many years ago.
And I do remember feeling the feeling after getting off the plane a little bit stronger.
It's all starting to make sense to Roseanne. But if the plane trip triggered the initial symptoms, why did the rocking sensation begin to wane every time she got into her car?
Of particular interest is that she is able to make the symptoms go away when she drives, which indicates that when the gravity center is being continuously stimulated, it makes the symptom go away. It's when she's seated or on land or walking around that the rocking sensation comes back.
For the first time in almost 7 years, Roseanne feels validated.
It felt very relieving to feel like a doctor for once knows what it is, has knowledge of this, and possibly knows something that I can do about it.
But the diagnosis is bittersweet.
Unfortunately, there is no cure for the disembarking syndrome. It can last for many, many years with continuous rocking motion going on for 10 or 15 years. It can also go away spontaneously. There's a lot of research being done to try and come up with medications and even surgeries to correct the abnormality, so that we're hopeful that in the future we can fix the problem, correct the abnormality, and make the patients feel better.
It's saddening to know that there's no cure for it, but having the diagnosis made me feel like at least there's a name for it. It is real.
If I could take that, all the information she has today, and brought it back 10 years ago, it would totally change our lifestyles, our marriage, our relationship, and everything else.
Understandably, when a person has been misdiagnosed or unable to be diagnosed for quite some time, they begin to think that they have a mental problem.
In fact, many patients with undiagnosed balance disorders frequently suffer from severe panic attacks.
One of the things that we now know is that a lot of vestibular disorders trigger anxiety, and a lot of anxiety can trigger a vestibular disorder. There's a lot of overlap.
Roseanne considers herself lucky to have been diagnosed at all. But she can't help but wonder why so many doctors fail to put the seemingly simple pieces of the puzzle together.
Well, this is a very, very rare syndrome. In my practice, we see no more than 1 or 2 of these patients every 2 or 3 years, and most physicians are either not aware of it or have not heard of it.
Today, Roseanne still suffers from the symptoms of disembarkment syndrome, but she refuses to let her condition slow her down. She continues to research possible treatments and cures, but most importantly, she's come to learn just how resilient she can be.
I've learned that you've got to pretty much take hold of your own health issues. If there's something wrong with you that you can't find an answer to, or the doctors can't find an answer to, you have to just keep pushing and searching and looking, and don't give up on it. I will continue to keep looking for treatment until we find an answer. I'll keep on trying. Won't give up.
The only thing Roseanne is sure of now is that whatever is plaguing her is starting to affect her work. She's calling in sick more than she used to, and when she does make it into the beauty salon, no one seems to notice that she's struggling to get through the day.
Many times I would be working and doing a facial or something, and they were sitting there relaxing, and I inside felt like I wanted to cry.
Desperate for some clue, Roseanne returns to her family doctor, who promptly suggests that she just relax and try taking an anti-anxiety medication.
I was taking care of the 2 kids. It was very stressful, so I said, okay, I'll take this. I started wondering if I was crazy. I even started seeing a therapist all the time.
Despite the fact that she's doing everything the doctor told her to do, she feels herself slipping further and further away from her family.
I went on the medicine, and the attacks did not go away. They actually got worse. At this point, when I laid down in bed, I would feel like I was literally falling in midair off of something. I didn't even feel like I was touching the bed.